Question for you. Were you aware of the finest hours going into the D23 Expo? Were you aware of it coming out of the D23 Expo? And if you weren't, I guess you are now. I've actually reviewed that trailer. I'll put a link to it at the end of this episode. And I thought that the trailer looked very good all on its own. So I'm glad to see the movie getting some attention here. All right, so next up, they went to Pete's Dragon. Now, they interspersed some of the films that landed in here. I believe Jungle Book actually went second. But Pete's Dragon was one of the smaller films. And one of the reasons I think this didn't quite trend is because they didn't release any images for it, anything from the sizzle reel. But Bryce Dallas Howard managed to get a lot of attention. She was the actor from the cast that showed up. The film features Robert Redford and Carl Urban. I guess Robert Redford had a good experience working on Captain America Winter Soldier, so he re-upped with Disney once more for now a live-action fairy tale. And they described the movie. It basically is Bryce Dallas Howard playing another version of her Jurassic World character, a real pragmatic, all-businesswoman, this time a forest ranger, who finds a little boy, a mysterious little boy in the woods, and, decides to take him in and, learns to appreciate life more, etc., etc. I think a lot of people would prefer to learn about life from Chris Pratt, but I guess a mystical little boy will do as well. No mention of a dragon, and also there were no visual effects revealed in the sizzle reel that they showed either. Apparently there was just like a dragon leg or arm that Robert Redford was petting, but that was about it. But the reason that I want to talk about Pete's Dragon in this coverage is because Bryce Dallas Howard, I've never been a big fan of her, but she really impressed me with her willingness to play ball here, not just for Disney, but for the fans. She was the only attendee, talent that came to the D23 Expo to dress in Disney clothing. As you can see, she has a Mickey Mouse shirt on. I thought that was a really great way to acknowledge not just the fan base, but just the love of Disney that the fan base has. I mean, when you start bringing in other properties like Marvel and Star Wars, you're bringing in people who maybe haven't had such a love for Disney prior to the studio acquiring these brands, right? But I think that hardcore Disney fans, the kind that will attend D23, maybe not the next time, because this one made such a big splash, they might up their attendance. But I think a lot of the people that went to D23 this year are old school, hardcore Disney fans. And so part of being a hardcore, old school Disney fan is wearing the garb. So I thought it was great that she partook in that and acknowledged the fan base and just what it means to be part of the Disney company. Disney studio executives will often wear Disney ties, Disney pins. Actually, Michael Eisner, for instance, that's how he got the job when he applied. He wore a Disney tie to his interview. So it goes a long way. So Sean Bailey is the head of live action for Disney, and he ran the presentation. And I have to say, if I were him, Bryce Dallas Howard would have scored major points with me. And as a fan and as a member of the media, she did score major points with me in that regard. I also thought it was nice what she said about loving the movie herself as a child and wanting to, to modernize the story so that she can share it with her own children. Again, another example of making it really personal and, getting me more interested in the movie. And I'm wondering, did it work for you as well? Then the next smaller movie that they spotlighted stars Lupita Nyong'o. She was promoting a lot of movies there. She's a part of the Jungle Book. That movie got a lot of press on Saturday. And she's also, of course, a part of Star Wars. But two of those three roles are motion capture roles. The Jungle Book is motion capture, and so is Star Wars. The more high-profile movies, unfortunately, will not actually feature Lupita Nyong'o personally. It'll feature her voice and the motion capture echo of her performance. But motion capture, of course, is making leaps and bounds, and we might be soon reaching a day where all actors have a couple of motion capture roles on their resume. But I think there's a real desire to see Lupita Nyong'o in person on screen, especially because there aren't enough working dark-skinned actresses right now. That's a big problem, not just in Hollywood, but in all forms of popular culture. So hopefully, I actually believe there was some controversy recently about someone tweeting that they didn't think Lupita Nyong'o was attractive, which is pretty appalling. I don't see why that's anybody's business on Twitter. She's an actress, not even a model. So I thought that was very bizarre. And so kudos to Lupita Nyong'o for having to be one of the first out there and having to brave a lot of crap. But she was very gracious at the D23 Expo. And, I think that her star power helped get some attention for this movie, which I actually think got the least attention out of all the films profiled at the event. It's called The Queen of Katwe, and it's going to be directed by Mira Nair, who for a while was quite a well-known Indian Hollywood director. She did, for instance, Vanity Fair. She was getting a lot of work for a while, but then she kind of fell off the radar. So she seems hopefully to be back with this film. She's directing it, and it's going to have Lupita Nyong'o teaming up with David Oyelowo, who we just recently discussed over Morning Movie News for being the first black actor to portray James Bond. Not in not in visual medium, but by doing the audiobook for an upcoming James Bond novel, that's commissioned or given the stamp of approval by the Ian Fleming estate, called Trigger Mortis. So a lot of leaps and bounds are being made in the voiceover area, but a start's a start. So what is this story about? Well, Lupita Nyong'o is going to play the mother of a little girl in Uganda who becomes a chess prodigy. So we'll see, Disney is making a lot of these movies. Just a lot of these movies are being made in general. This reminds me of the 100-Foot Journey, which was actually a DreamWorks picture. But then also Disney kind of did their own version with the $1 Million Arm with John Hamm going to India. And these are small films, but I think that they exist in such a middle ground. They actually remind me a little bit of the films that Disney made like in the 1960s as a studio. Some of those worked, some of those didn't. But they're too mainstream to really be awards contenders, but yet they're not artistic enough to really stand out and get the indie crowd. So they kind of just disappear because the mid-range movie is disappearing in Hollywood. So we'll see how The Queen of Conway does. And we'll also see how Pawn Sacrifice does this award season, and if maybe it takes the chess spotlight away. Although, people are talking about chess, maybe they'll want to talk about this movie afterwards. So again, this movie had had absolutely nothing to show, even to those in attendance in Hall D23, and it got the least, I think, amount of attention at the conference. So finally, Beauty and the Beast. They showed stuff for Beauty and the Beast, but the lockdown on this, Disney's lockdown, was amazing. Nobody was able to get anything out of the expo that was filmed or photographed if it wasn't an official press release from Disney. So the fact they were able to get that kind of security, I'm sure the studios from Comic-Con who were griping about their trailers leaking are going to be like, how did you do it? Although I think you could probably just block the cell phone, but that doesn't keep people from taking video or photos. But Disney really was on top of it, and I'm very surprised that these things didn't leak because Beauty and the Beast is so hotly anticipated. Because of course it stars Emma Watson, and her fan base is highly motivated. But what did they show? They showed Belle, apparently Emma Watson is Belle, in her iconic blue dress. How did that not leak? And they also showed a few shots from, because the film is currently shooting, and they had Luke Evans and Josh Gad singing a few bars of Gaston. I mean, wow. But I think those things are so potent and would be so popular with viewers that I can see why Disney wanted to clamp down on them and not get them have a wide release for those elements, because they could potentially overshadow everything else, at least from Disney proper, that was debuted at D23. Again, they have movies coming out before Beauty and the Beast, and they want to just, and also you just don't want to peak too early. But at the same time, we know that they showed these things, so it's a double-edged sword that the imagery is out there, but yet it's not. I think Civil War is wrestling with the same problem. And also, you don't want to have a situation where Beauty and the Beast was showcased anywhere and didn't trend, right? I think that's always problematic, and you never want to, get people used to the idea of your movie not making headlines. All right, so that wraps up my coverage of Disney's D23 Expo live action presentation. More coverage coming the rest of this week. There's some animated things I want to discuss and some theme park announcements. But I'd be very curious to know what you think of Disney's immense and very crowded upcoming live action slate. What are the standouts, and what movies do you think that you could wait to watch on demand? All right, thank you so much for tuning in, and you can check out more of that D23 coverage right now.